Yo, welcome to Kicks and Minivans, a podcast for dads, especially the ones that love sneakers. I'm your host, KG. You could be listening or watching anything right now, so the fact that you're here hanging out, man, that means a lot. So thank you for joining us in the first ever kickoff episode of Kicks and Minivans. Man, we are so excited for this. Hopefully you peep the preview episode, you get a little bit of a taste of where this is coming from, but just keep the mission real simple. We're here to help men win in marriage and parenting. And we talk about sneakers along the way, too. And speaking of which, every week, we're going to have a kick of the week. And a lot of my sneakers that I got, man, there's a story behind how I got them. And a lot of them, it's like some of them you just pick up along the way. But some of them, there's a story and they mean something to you. So this, if you're just listening, you can't see, the kick of the week this week is the one that our logo's modeled after, and that's the Jordan 4 Fire Red. It's a super dope shoe to me, and I picked it up when about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, my family was making the move from Philly out here to Indiana, and when we were doing that, man, we went crazy. Like we were throwing away and selling all sorts of stuff, donating all sorts of stuff from our shed, just everything that we didn't need. So we were just getting rid of a ton of stuff, man, hitting Facebook Marketplace. And so as I'm going through the shed one day, I find something in there and I'm, thinking about just tossing it. And I was like, hey, you know what? I wonder if this has any value, right? And so I looked it up on eBay right quick and I was like, nah. There's no way. And this thing that was just sitting in my shed for I don't know, 2, 3, maybe even longer, 2, 3 years, maybe longer. I looked it up. This thing was worth like $250. So I was like, yeah, we ain't gonna throw that. I'm gonna post it on eBay. And so I posted it up there probably July or August of 2020. And then it sat, we moved in September. It sat on eBay for a while, but we brought it with us. It didn't take up that much space. And I had kind of forgotten about it, put it in the new garage in the new place. And a couple months go by and finally someone out of the blue buys it on eBay. And I'm like, word, dope. And it was 2 days before these came out on sneakers. And I had never hit on sneakers before. I missed them. But I had a buddy that wears the same size as me. Shout out Bryce. He hit on sneakers and on something else like Champs or something. He hit too. So he flipped me one for retail value. He didn't even make money on me, man. That's a real bro right there. So that's the kick of the week. And since it is the sneaker that our logo's modeled after, only right that it is episode 1's kick of the week, the Jordan 4 Fire Red. So if you saw the episode title, it's probably the worst title for a premiere episode of a podcast on fatherhood ever, right? I miss my freedom. Probably not my smartest move as far as marketing strategy or anything like that, but I do feel like I'm just trying to keep it real. I put on I put on my personal Facebook and Instagram page back in August. So 2-3 months ago now, I told people that I was going to be starting this podcast, on marriage and fatherhood and stuff like that. 2-3 days later, everything just started crashing all around me. My wife was back to work full force. After the baby was born, she kicked her hours back up to full time. So I was home alone with 2 under 3, which I don't know if you've ever done that before, but it's crazy. It's insane having 2 under 3. And we were all feeling the effects of my wife being gone at work. And the little baby's he's starting to teeth. He went from being this just happy-go-lucky baby, just smiling 24/7 all the time, to all of a sudden, he's cranky, he's moody, he needs to be held or else he's screaming, that sort of thing. My 2-year-old started getting really in this, possessive, everything's mine phase. Even the baby's going after my phone, and the 2-year-old's like, nah, that's mine. I'm like, it ain't yours, man. Baby's going after the trash can. Jason's like, no, that's mine. I'm like, well, I don't want the baby getting the trash, but you ain't got to be like that, And so they were going at it, and I found myself missing my life before kids a little bit. Now, I don't know if you felt like that before. Like, I found myself missing the freedom that I had before I had kids. Now, I want to choose my words carefully. Like, I do not regret having kids. Never have I felt any sort of sense of regret or remorse in having kids. And there are men and women, mothers and fathers that feel that way. Actually, about 7 to 8% of parents at some point feel a deep regret about having kids. 7 to 8% of people, when asked if you could do it all over, say that they would choose to never have kids. 7 to 8% of parents, 7 to 8% of parents say that they would choose to not have any kids if they could do it all over again, which is crazy to me. And I haven't felt that. I could kind of understand how someone could feel that, though, because I missed my life before kids. There was this sense of me where I was like, man, I really miss what I had before kids entered the picture. You know, one of those, you don't know what you got till it's gone. I wish somebody would have told me that someday these would be the good old days, you know. And it's not that those days were better, but it was just different. And I think so many times we look at the grass is greener on the other side, whether that's our neighbor's grass or the grass of our past or the grass of our future. We look at the grass is greener on the other side, and that's not always the case. The grass is different on the other side, doesn't necessarily make it better. But I found myself in this season, like 3 days after I announced that I'm going to launch this podcast, I found myself missing my life before kids. And the biggest thing I was missing was freedom, my time. And I had a full-time job then. Right now, I'm a full-time dad. I stay at home 100% of the time with these kids. And there's no lie. There's a part, like, I miss working. I miss going to work. That's part of why this thing is happening right now. Because it's like, I had to do something, man. I was going crazy. Like, I had to do something. I had to create something. God put that in me to be creative, and I needed an outlet for that. So that's part of how this came. But, like, I miss working. I miss my freedom, my time. I was, in the gym 6 days a week. I was playing ball 3 or 4 days a week. I was watching whatever basketball game I wanted whenever I wanted. I was hopping on the Xbox with my dudes whenever I felt like it, hanging out with friends, doing all the things that I enjoyed doing whenever I wanted it. And now the amount of free time that I get in a week is like less than I had in a day before I had kids. And if you got kids, I know you feel me. And maybe, give me some hope that, like, when they're a little bit older, some of that starts coming back to you a little bit, when they get more independent and stuff like that. But man, like, I miss the time that I had, just straight up. Like, I miss my freedom. I miss the time, my free time that I got to choose what I did with my time. Maybe some of y'all miss sleep. Like, I can't complain about this. My kids sleep really well at night. They're terrible nappers. The 2-year-old stopped napping before he turned 2. And the baby right now, he's about 7-8 months old. He naps like twice a day and usually like 30 minutes at a time. But when they sleep, man, they sleep like 11, 12, 13 hours straight. So I can't complain about that. Like, I sleep decently at night. But some people, man, their kids just never pick up sleeping through the night. And so maybe you're sitting there, you're like, yo, if I miss anything about my life before kids, it's how much quality sleep that I got, bro. Or maybe it's money. Because kids expensive. I don't know if you thinking about having kids in the future, like, factor in the financial cost. There's a lot of costs financially to get started with kids. You got to buy them the crib, the dresser, all the clothes, stuff like that. Right now, the age that our kids are in, it's like, diapers and wipes and stuff like that's expensive. But it just gets more and more expensive as they start getting into sports, extracurricular activities, bands, stuff like that. Family trips, even just going out to eat, man. Like, kids meals are like $8.99 at places now. I'm like, yo, that was my meal just a couple years ago. Now, man, it's like a small fortune to take a family of 4 or 5 out to dinner. But maybe you miss the money that you had before you had kids. Or maybe it's a marital thing too. Having a kid, inserting a kid into a marriage, into a family, changes the dynamics of the family. And it can really test how strong your marriage is with your spouse. And maybe you're like, man, me and my wife, we had a good thing going before these kids came, man. And I missed that. And maybe you need some more intentionality and some more quality time between you and your spouse. But whatever it is, I think, we have this tendency in life, not just in parenthood and fatherhood, but we have this tendency in life to look at what we don't have and just think it's better. And it's not even necessarily better, it's just different. And then when we go and we get that thing, we could look back on what we have now and say like, man, I miss. It's like when you're living in the season that I'm in right now, when you got, toddlers and babies in the house and stuff, you're just like, your whole life is just crazy. It's just insane. But so many people, they wish, they're like, oh, this is just a phase. We'll just get through this phase. And then they look back and they think, oh man, like those were the good old days. When they were young, when my kids still wanted to play with me, when my kids still got excited when I came home from work. Like I want to go back to those days when they were little. When they're little, you're just trying to get through the days, man. Like the days are long, but the years are short. Like you're just trying to get through it. And so what do we do? What do we do when we look at our life and we're saying like, man, I miss or I wish? How do we settle in the right here and the right now? Because that's what we have, is the right here and right now. And yeah, there's lessons to learn from the past and there's a future to plan and prepare for. But right now, how do we live in this moment right now and make the most of it? Because our roles as men, as fathers, as husbands, is, I believe, the most important role in the world. Because check this. There's something called the father effect. The father effect is basically this, and you've heard it, but it's an actual term called the father effect. That kids with active and engaged dads are less likely to drop out of school and wind up in jail. They tend to avoid high-risk behaviors, are less likely to have sex at a young age, are more likely to have high-paying jobs and healthy, stable relationships when they grow up. Even by age 3, kids with active fathers show higher IQ test scores and go through less psychological problems throughout their lives. I don't know who's giving IQ tests to 3-year-olds, but the effect and the impact that an engaged and active and loving father has on their kids is second to none. And that's not to minimize the role that a mother plays in the life of her kid. That is an extremely important role. And that's why God designed it, that a family would have a mother and a father inside of their home. I believe that's the best design. That's the way God designed it to be. And I'm not trying to minimize a mother's role. I'm trying to emphasize the importance that a father has in the life of his kids. Because I believe mothers and fathers, they play different roles, equally important roles, but different roles in the life and the upbringing of their kids. And the role that the father plays impacts the way that kids grow to be and engage with others around them. And here's what I mean, is that little girls tend to grow up and engage in relationships with people who are like their dad. They tend to seek out people that have the character traits of their father. Whether that's good or bad. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, girls tend to, not just romantic relationships, but friendships, coworkers, they tend to seek out people that were like their father. And so it makes you as a man, as a father, look in the mirror and say, would I want my daughter to be with a guy like me? Would I want my daughter to marry a guy like me? Would I trust my daughter with a guy like me? Because science and studies show your daughter is likely to end up with a guy like you. That's why there's this stigma around girls with daddy issues. It's a real thing. Boys, on the other hand, little boys, on the other hand, tend to grow up and take on the character of their father. They tend to grow up to be like their dad. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree sort of thing. They tend to grow up and be like their dad. And so it makes you, again, look in the mirror and say, do I want my little boy to grow up and be like me? Would I be proud of my son if he turned out the way that I am? And I got 2 little boys that I'm raising. And I have to ask myself that every single day. Am I happy Am I happy with the model that I am laying out for my kids? Am I proud of the example that I'm setting forth before them? And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's no. There's days where I yell too much at them, I scream too much, I lose my temper. There's days where I promise them something and I take it back. There's times that it's not, but there's times that it's yes. Where my 2-year-old man, like he loves going grocery shopping with me. Like I do all the grocery shopping in our house. Like that's like our thing, me and him. And we cannot leave the grocery store without stopping by and picking up some flowers to take home to mama. Like, come on, man. Like, what dad doesn't love seeing his 2-year-old boy delight in bringing flowers home to mama? So it's like there's certain things where I already see in my 2-year-old parts of me coming out. And so our role as fathers is vital because our little boys will grow up to be like us and our little girls will grow up to be in relationship with men like us. And so how do we live in the right here and the right now in order to prepare and plan for the future? And there's just two things. There's two things I want to challenge. And this is something that, a couple months ago, I started every single day trying to implement these two things. And they're really, really simple because I'm a simple dude. And I almost always believe simple is better. Things don't have to be complicated. Simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. It just means not complicated. I don't think things need to be complicated. So just two things. There's two things that I try to do every single day as a dad and as a husband. And I want to challenge you to do those two. The first is simple because they're both simple. The first one's just be present. It's to actually be present in the moment with your kids, with your wife, when you're at home. And to actually be available to them. There's studies that are showing that just 10 to 15 minutes a day of intentional, uninterrupted with your time with your kids can have profound impacts on them throughout the course of their life. 10 to 15 minutes of quality time. And what's coming out is that the quality of the time is more important than the quantity of the time. That it's more important, it's more valuable to your kids, to their formation, to them just knowing that you love them. It's more valuable for you to have that 10 to 15 minutes of deep quality time instead of an hour of time that's just spent doing nothing and talking about nothing. And just being in the room with them, but not necessarily being present and available to them. And so for me, this is what it looks like, that each day, my baby's usually the first one to wake up. And he usually gets up about 7-ish, 6:30, 7 o'clock. And he's the first one up. And so, I take him in, I get him his bottle, get him changed and dressed, all those things. And then until Big Bro wakes up, it's me and him time, man. Like that's just, I leave my phone in the other room. I leave my phone on the charger. And I'm engaging with him. It's like we feed him the bottle, he finishes that, and then I just get on the floor and I just crawl around with him. He's crawling around, he's climbing up on things, pulling himself up, pushing a little walker, starting to do that. And so it's like, man, I just engage with him fully. I just play with him as best I can because, me sitting there and making faces at him is one thing, but when I get down on my hands and knees and I'm crawling, like you can't wipe that smile from his face, man. You can't. You just can't do it. And so me crawling around on the floor with him, playing with him, engaging with him, like that's all he cares about in the entire world. All he cares about is milk and being played with. That's the only thing he cares about. He's 7, 8 months old. He don't care about nothing else. He don't care about money. He don't care about Jordans. He cares about his daddy, his mommy, getting down on the floor and engaging with him. Big Bro wakes up, we get the whole breakfast thing going. When baby goes down for a nap, that first nap of the day, and like I told you, he naps like twice a day, like 30, 40 minutes at a time. That first nap, I am so tempted as a dude, like I go into task mode. And man, it's like I can't stand a messy house. So I go into task mode. I'm like, I got to clean the kitchen. I got to get the trash out. I got to do this. I got to do that. The laundry's piling up. All this stuff. I haven't cleaned the bathroom in a week. Like, there's all these things that I'm like, I got to do this, do that. Because I'm such a task-oriented person. Now, when the baby goes to sleep, that's Jace's time. my 2-year-old Jace. That's his time, man. Whatever he wants to play until baby wakes up, we play it. I leave my phone in the other room. I get down. It's usually like we're playing Hot Wheels or we're building Legos. Like we might read some books. Like whatever he wants to do, I'm there. I'm present. I'm available to him. And I started doing this and intentionally leaving my phone because I'm addicted to my phone. I'll just admit it, right? I'm strongly addicted to my phone. Every Sunday morning I get that like your screen time was this many hours and minutes each week. Like I ain't even gonna tell you what it is because I'm embarrassed. But I'm addicted to my phone. And so, 3 months ago when I was talking about like everything was kind of going crazy, something that had happened was, the baby was down for a nap and I'm sitting in there and, quote unquote playing with Jace, where he's like trying to build Legos and I'm like holding a block, kind of stacking it, but I have my phone in my other hand. And I'm probably scrolling Instagram or something, like nothing important, right? I'm never doing anything that important on my phone. He comes over to me, this 2-year-old comes over to me, takes the phone out of my hand, puts it down on the ground, screen down, says, "Dada, get off the phone and play with me." I'm like, yo. All right, kids got no filter. They just tell it how it is. That's all I needed, man. My 2-year-old told me to get off the phone and play with him. And so every day I try to give him at least 15 minutes, if not more, of uninterrupted, undistracted, quality time together. And so that's my first challenge is be present. Get that quality time. Maybe you can't do 15 minutes a day with each kid. Maybe you got like 8 kids and you're like, yo, that's 2 hours. It's not like I don't have 2 extra hours in a day. Do what you can, man. Do what you can. Whether that's 5 minutes a day per kid or each week you take each kid out for ice cream. Like whatever it is, however you can make it work in your family. But it's like you got the time. You can make the time. Make the time. Create the time. There's nothing more important than this time. Make the time. Get off Instagram. Get off the Xbox. Watch one less football game on the weekend. Like whatever you got to do to create the time, do it, man. And how you interact with your kids during that time matters too. Right? If you're just often dismissive or insulting to them, putting them down, that's actually going to do more harm than good. And you know this. But the quality of time, encouraging them, building them up, teaching them new things, being a dad to them will have more impact on them than you could ever know. The second thing is almost the complete opposite of that, but it's do something intentional for yourself. Do something for you. Because and here's part of where the Kicks and Minivans name is, right? Like when I first like said that slogan, the intent behind it, kind of the mindset behind it was, I'm not going to be starting to wear dad shoes, right? Like dad shoes, like, you know what they are. Like, I'm not going to start doing that just because I'm driving a minivan. Like, I'm going to be true to who I am still. Right? Like, I love sneakers. I love kicks. Like, I'm going to still rock Jordans and drive a minivan. Like, I'm cool with that. And things change. Like, I ain't driving the little 2-door stick shift car that I had, 10 years ago. I love that car. I miss it so much. But, like, I'm driving a minivan now. And that's cool. But I'm going to still be true to me. I'm going to rock my kicks. I'm going to rock my Jordans while I'm driving that. Kicks and Minivans, take care of yourself, the kicks, so that you can take care of the people that's in your minivan, right? And maybe it's not sneakers, like whatever your thing is, whatever you have to do to get yourself in a healthy spot. And this isn't like a cop out to go and watch football all Saturday and Sunday, right? But like doing something for yourself that fills you up, that makes you a better man. You have to do that. You have to incorporate that into your daily, weekly rhythm of life in order to be the best dad you can be, in order to be the best husband you can be. You have to take care of yourself. It's a necessity. You can't take care of your family if you're not taking care of yourself first. And so for me, there's two key parts of this. For me, one is I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus, and so every morning I try to get out here before the kids are up and just open my Bible, spend time reading my Bible and praying. And it's real simple. It's not long or complicated. It's honestly like 15 minutes is like what I got the time for each day. But that's how I try to start my day. And then the other is my fitness. When I am working out consistently, when I'm eating right, when I'm hitting the gym, when I'm taking care of my body physically and taking care of my soul spiritually, I am in the best position to be the best dad I can be, the best husband I can be, the best friend I can be. But I have to be doing the things to take care of myself so that I could be present for my kids. And so these two things, they almost feel like complete opposites of it's like spend intentional quality time with your kids and include your wife in that too. But then spend intentional time alone doing something for you. But I think they're both necessary. I think they're both needed things in order to be the best version of yourself, in order for you to be in a healthy enough spot to lovingly care for your family. That's it. And we have to do these things because our little boys are going to grow up to be like us. And so what do we want to model for them? I want to model someone that's at his healthiest point, that loves his family, that's not distracted by his phone, that's not always getting angry and upset, but someone that's in a healthy spot because he takes care of himself, that intentionally spends time with his kids, intentionally spends time loving his wife. I want my little boys to grow up with that model. And do you want your little girl to grow up to pursue someone like you in the future? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves. These are the things that we have to do. Take care of yourself. Spend intentional time with your kids. Thanks so much for joining us for the first ever episode of Kicks and Minivans. I hope it was inspiring and beneficial to you. Hey, however you're watching and listening, give us a thumbs up, a 5-star review, leave us a comment or review. However you do that, it is helping us tremendously as we get this thing started. And if you're not already, follow us on Instagram at Kicks and Minivans. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your family.